Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa. I do videos about art and videos about books, and today is one of the art videos, as you can probably tell. And today it's going to be one of those use all your art supplies of certain color challenges. And you might also be able to tell that the art supply color that I'm using is purple. So over on the left you can see almost all of my purple art supplies besides the watercolors, which I'm holding. And so besides the watercolors, which are fairly easy to keep track of, I pretty much have a bunch of different types of pens and a couple of markers. And so in order to keep track of whether I have used them or not, I'm going to do something that Scribblefix does. I'll link her below because she does a lot of this type of challenge and other color palette limited challenges that are really cool. But she keeps all of her art supplies that she hasn't used on one side and then moves them to the other side. So I'm going to use that method to keep track of which ones I've used, because otherwise I will definitely forget. Especially because, as I discovered as I was drawing on all of these various geometric shapes onto this cat that I have made, the pen colors, the caps, and the ink you can see, and everything about the pen does not accurately reflect the color of the pen. Now on these two that I have that are from Color Collection by Bic Intensity Fine Liners, those have caps that are pretty accurate. But those gel pens that I got in that massive 100 pack are completely inaccurate. Like, I haven't discovered this so badly up till this point, but probably because this project so much depends on trying to use different shades of colors, different shades of the same color, it mattered not just that it was purple, but what type of purple. And so I wanted to kind of spread out the more pinky purples and interspace them between the more bluey purples and the dark purples next to the light purples, so that we wouldn't have like color blocks that all kind of look the same and all the lines would be easy to see. But because I couldn't tell what color was going to come out, that didn't work out totally perfectly. Eventually I came up with a sort of system which was, once I used a pen, I would determine whether it was a bluey one or a reddish one, and then I would put it at one angle, and then I would put the more pinkish ones at a different angle. And that worked for a while, but then for some reason my system got messed up and then I couldn't find it. I couldn't find which ones were right in the end, so I had a very frustrating time with these geometric shapes. But overall, I ended up liking what I came up with, so that's nice. We kind of rushed right through the beginning setting up part where I was using my watercolors, so I want to tell you a little bit about that. First of all, I was using a technique, pretty much the exact same technique that I used for the background of my castle and dragon piece a couple of weeks ago, where I used the side of a bullet-shaped paintbrush and sort of just swished on some very condensed watercolor paint and just swished it all together like that, because I really liked the effect that I got last time, and it seemed like a good way to use multiple different colors at the same time. And I kind of wanted to make this whole piece something where you could see the brush strokes, and also when I was filling in with these pens, you can see the line strokes. And so since I knew that that would be kind of hard to eliminate from the sections I was filling in with pen, by the way, if you have a good method for overcoming that when you use gel pens, let me know. But since I knew I would likely be leaving artistic sort of lines on the pen section, I thought it would be cool to leave my brush marks on the watercolor section as well. And one thing I did a little differently with the watercolor section this time was that I made the edges not go all the way out to the sides. I usually like to fill the entire paper because I really like how that looks on the wall, not to have any white space. But when I'm making things like t-shirts and mugs and stuff like that, it works a lot better if I have a jagged outline instead of the picture just stopping in a square, and I think that looks better. So I would like to make more mug and phone case and t-shirt friendly pieces in the near future, because I really like t-shirts with art on them. Most of my favorite t-shirts have other people's art on them, so I would like to make more of those, and so I would like to and so I'm working on kind of making pieces that are more friendly to that recently, and so that's why I left the sort of artistic painty edge gloopy blobby like that. Let me know what you think of paintings that are just prints or art for the wall. Do you prefer them to have that kind of edge, or do you like them to be totally colorful so there's no white space and everything is like immersive, or like it's a photo of a magical thing type thing? I don't know if that makes any sense, but do you like jagged edges or non-jagged edges on your art prints is the question I was trying to ask. And so this is the point that we've come to where I started to find it hard to find the correct pens, and I kept just putting them down out of order because I thought, oh, I'm almost done, I don't need to have them in order. Well, I did, because several times I kept having to try different pens and go over the lines with other pens because I was using the exact same color right next to itself a couple times. Like, for some reason I couldn't figure that out, and a couple other times I was using something that was just too close, and I was trying. Oh, it just took a lot of effort to get this last little section done. But fortunately, in the end, I think it all looks relatively cohesive and doesn't look like I just totally struggled with the head section. You can let me know if you think so. And so I'm happy with it in the end, but it was a very big struggle there for a point. Another thing that's different about this piece compared to a lot of my pieces is that there's not a lot of contrast. Since it's all one color, that's one thing, and I have done several other all one color pieces that kind of all fade together color-wise, but this one particularly, the line that I used to outline the cat shape isn't very thick, and it's the only real line art going on, so I feel like it all kind of fades together to a certain extent, where the only thing setting it apart is shape, because there's geometric shapes inside the cat, and outside the cat there are organic shapes. And I kind of like how it's so one thing kind of from far away, and then up close you can see something sort of emerge, a pattern emerge. And usually I like there to be a lot of contrast, but in this case I think it turned out pretty nice, and I like that it's kind of vague and not very heavy line art, and you can just, you know, stare at some pretty purple colors with a vague cat shape in the middle. And then of course my last purple art supplies were a couple of tubs of glitter, because I love glitter and I always have multiple colors of glitter, and so I put just some little dainty dollops on the background with little bits of glitter, which for one was easy and didn't take a lot of coordination, because I was thinking about adding some of it to the cat itself, but trying to make it so that those wouldn't just stick out glaringly if I made them into individual geometric shapes. I also thought about lining outside the geometric shapes with glitter, but I just didn't like those ideas. So it was a bit of a cop-out to just put dots of it on the background, but also that's kind of my favorite way to use glitter, is in little dollops. So it kind of worked, you know, the way I use those art supplies, so it makes sense. Anyway, that is how I used all the purple art supplies I own. Doing this kind of challenge makes me realize I need to diversify my art supplies, because this was mostly pens, and so I would like to have some purple acrylic paint and possibly a few other varieties of things, so I'll be looking into that. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!